But there are three things that would be necessary for this registration to take place. First of all, a person would need to have his own identification code. Secondly, the code must be with him at all times. It's not something visible. You wouldn't put your social security number on your forehead, even if you could, right? So his ID is not visible, but it's permanently imprinted or implanted somehow on his person, so that a data processing device can read it each time he tries to buy or sell something. Does that make sense? And you can't just forget your credit card or lose your credit card or whatever else, so it needs to be part of your being almost. And third, there must be a worldwide computer system capable of handling such a mind-boggling amount of information. It's not wise to be dogmatic about what exact technologies will be used when this time comes. And by the way, we still have more time. As fast as knowledge is growing, as quickly as the technology is changing, the mark of the beast won't happen until the middle of the tribulation period. And we haven't entered the tribulation period yet. So it's at least 3.5 years, even if Jesus were to come back for us tonight. So we don't want to be dogmatic, but we can point to certain things that would be good ways of fulfilling this prophecy even today. Let's look briefly at these three things. First, the identification code or the number for each person. Will that be our social security number or our driver's license? Maybe it will be the health plan number that was proposed by the stimulus bill that was just signed into law yesterday. Everybody has to have a number for the health plan, and the reason for this, let me read from an article called "Stimulus Bill Will Track Individual Health Records Electronically." Dated February 10th. This is current stuff. An alarming provision of the stimulus bill is the creation of a national coordinator of health information technology that will assign an electronic ID to every person and maintain their health records. The goal is to reduce costs and guide your doctor's decisions. You probably heard some talk about this, that that means that the doctor will be told by the government whether or not he can do the surgery he wants to do. And all that information will be at their fingertips in the computers. Okay, next, what about imprinting or implanting this number? Last November, Chuck Missler reminded his readers, that wasn't too long ago, November, that the very chip, implantable radio frequency ID device, are you familiar with that? It's basically the same thing that they put in pets to identify them. It's about the size of a grain of rice, and it can be injected painlessly under the skin. And they've had approval for several years now for use with humans. And some humans do get it, if they're like in danger of being kidnapped or something like that, or if they are Alzheimer's patients and they're liable to just get lost and somebody needs to figure out who they are. But what Missler was saying is that it hasn't been very popular for people to just sign up and get the chip. And we can understand why. But he said this may change now, and I think he's right, because the company, the very chip company, plans to do a partnership with Microsoft, and any partnership with Microsoft is usually a good idea. Okay, and Microsoft has this internet program called Health Vault. And so with the very chip in your body, you will have access to Health Vault, which allows you to keep important medical information so that if you're in an accident or something like that, that people can bring up the information in a very short period of time and probably help save your life. So, you mean this will help save my life in an emergency? Okay then, I'll take the chip. See? Isn't that interesting? The third issue is a computer system capable of handling so much data. What do you think about the news that just came out on February 3rd? This is also very current. The fastest supercomputer ever. That's the headline. I'm reading now. IBM is working on its new Sequoia computer to be delivered in 2011. That's only 2 years from now. To the Department of Energy's Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. That's plenty of time. If Jesus would come back tonight, this computer would be operational way before the midpoint of the tribulation. It will operate. Now I know this is kind of like gobbledygook to people that don't like technical stuff, but it will operate at 20 petaflops. Anybody here want to tell us what 20 petaflops? What that means is 20 quadrillion floating point operations per second. Now back in the beginning, the first computer I ever had was an Apple I. I didn't own it. I wish I'd bought it. I could have bought it for $200, and I didn't. When the Apple II came out, and before the year was over, it was worth $30,000, and today it's priceless. But the thing that I wanted to say is that the operating speed of that processor was 1 million cycles per second. But a floating point operation is like what you do with your computer, where it can, you know, have all the decimal points, and it can, you know, expand it out for as far as you want. One floating point operation is like dividing a complicated number by another complicated number, and the answer is that one operation. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it's many cycles of a computer processor, a great many. Okay, so you can do that kind of an operation 20 quadrillion times a second with this computer. It's hard to get your mind around that. Here's another headline about that. It says, the IBM Sequoia is faster than the fastest 500 supercomputers combined. The existing supercomputers. IBM has the fastest one in operation. It's 1 petaflop. But there aren't any other computers as fast as that one. So you take the top 500 supercomputers and add up their speed, and this one computer will be faster than that. Or to put it another way, I'm reading from an article, if each of the 6.7 billion people on Earth had a hand calculator and worked together on a calculation 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it would take 320 years to do what Sequoia will do in 1 hour. That's fast. Here's a calculation that I made about the mark of the beast, and I think it's more helpful than the other for what we're talking about. If you divide 20 quadrillion floating point operations by the 6.7 million people in the world, you have almost 3 million floating point calculations per person. And that means, in other words, that the computer, this one computer, could check on your bank account, your credit, your legal status, your health information, your GPS position, and any recent activity related to your ID number. Then, believe it or not, this one computer could then move on to the next person, and then the next, checking on every single person on Earth, and when all of that was done, 1 second would have passed. We've got the speed. I truly believe we're living in the last days. There's nothing else that needs to happen before Jesus comes back to rapture the church. I've said that for many years, but if it was true then, it's more true now. At least one thing can always be said, we're closer to that time today than we ever were before. We don't believe in setting dates, but we do believe that these are the last days, and that we ought to live accordingly. For more information, visit Prophecy Central at www.bible-prophecy.com.